Morning, everybody. Keith Engle here with One-on-One with Keith Engle here on TGI Sports Talk. We're excited for today's guest, who we'll bring in just a couple minutes. Buddy Biancalana, former Kansas City Royal, Houston Astro, one of the key members of the 85 World Series team, which we'll talk about. Also, the founder of Zone Motion, which is a fascinating look at kind of revolutionizing. Is that the right word? Revolutionizing, I guess, Keith. Use that Perth education for something other than, put your hat on. It's revolutionized the way people are approaching sports, and we've all been in a zone probably, and we'll talk to Buddy about this, and we don't even know it. Maybe on the golf course, maybe in my younger days playing ball. I don't know how you get there and how you stay there. You're in it, but how do you stay there? It's some interesting stuff that we'll get into with Buddy. I want to welcome everybody watching this morning on TGI Sports Talk, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitter. We're live on Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel this morning as well. We're also live on Let's Talk Sports YouTube platform. So welcome everybody there. We'll also replay this. We'll share this to all the pertinent groups as always, and we'll replay it several times if you miss seeing us live. And we'll get to your comments as well. Also, a quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media, and especially the Sports Corner. He does a lot of great stuff, but the Sports Corner that he does Tuesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on WBVP Radio in Pittsburgh. Check out Ralph and Smoking Jim Frazier there and all the Ralph stuff. And thumbs up DDH. And with that, I'm going to bring in Mr. Buddy Biancalana, our guest today. Good morning, buddy.
Morning, Keith. How are you?
I am fabulous. It's a great day here in the Northeast. We're warming up finally. How's it in the Midwest, what temperature-wise? Are we cold or are we warm?
We're doing okay. We're pretty moderate. I think it's going to be about 71, 72 today. So it's pretty beautiful for this time of year.
Well, good. That's good to hear. It's beautiful. We just talked for a few minutes before we came on the air, and I was telling Buddy that here in upstate New York, it's beautiful about 10 days a year, and that's why we stick around for those 10 days. But that's probably an exaggeration. Buddy, yours is, at least people of my age and younger people maybe don't know the story of Buddy Biancalana, and we'll talk a little bit about that today and how you came to really an incredible amount of fame over a short period of time. Gosh, I hate to say how long ago for both of our sakes. But tell us about, when you were growing up, you were a high school baseball star. Was baseball your main focus for your younger years? And what were your influences in your high school years?
Well, my favorite sport was whatever season it was. I loved football, loved basketball, loved baseball, and had some injuries that really started to inhibit my breathing, and the football and basketball got very, very difficult for me. I just get very tired in practice and all. And so playing a slower sport like baseball became very attractive to me, and certainly played from the time I was 9 years old all the way up, and was very influenced by my father's love for baseball. And he was a stockbroker on the West Coast, which is where I grew up, where we lived. And so he was able to get home fairly early in the late afternoon, early evening, really, and spent a lot of time with me in the front yard playing and down at the local school where I went to school. And then I was really fortunate to have a really amazing high school coach by the name of Al Endres, who just passed away about 8-9 months ago. Al actually played in the Dodger organization and was also running back for the 49ers for a short period of time, and was a very progressive-minded baseball coach at the time, and just really promoted his players, really knew the game. Again, growing up in the Dodger organization, really fundamentally based, and was just a really great influence for me in my high school years. So I was very, very blessed to have great support around me. And I love the game. It was something I just loved doing every day in the front yard. I'd throw a ball against the wall every single day and sidestep planter boxes and pillars to try and make great plays. And it was, the way I grew up in Northern California, and it was a joy. I had a great childhood.
As I said, you had some renown. You were a first-round draft pick of the Royals in '78, I believe. When did you think I can make a living doing this potentially? Was it early on, or was it later in your formative years?
I remember I was a sophomore playing varsity baseball for Redwood High School out of Larkspur, California. And we were playing in South San Francisco. And after a game, a scout walked up to me and gave me a card to fill out. And it was like, whoa, this is interesting. I can't remember which team he was a scout for.
Yeah.
But I think it was at that time, I was like, oh, wow, I wonder if there's a possibility that I could go on and play professional baseball. It was something that I'd always wanted to do. I knew at 5 years old I wanted to play professional baseball.
There you go.
And it may not be unlike a lot of kids who are playing baseball, but, it just happened to come true for me. So my sophomore year, and then subsequently after my sophomore year, a lot more scouts come around, and colleges started recruiting me. And my high school coach, again, Al Endress, was really great at promoting his players, whether to professional scouts or college teams or even junior college clubs. So again, the support and mixed with my desire to play and I guess my ability had something to do with it, allowed me to be that first round pick in '78, which was really an amazing moment. I had no idea I'd be a first round pick. I thought I'd be a third or fourth round pick. And the morning of the draft, John Scherholz, who's now in the Hall of Fame, as a general manager, called me and asked me if I'd be interested in signing. That they wanted to make me their first pick. They were choosing 25th in the first round, and I said, if all things were right, I'd consider doing it. So that's where it all began, the professional career at least.
Did you consider going to school as an option as well? And where would you might have?
Yeah, I was set going to college. I was from a very well-educated family, and I had decided I signed a letter of intent to play at Arizona State, and right, wrong, or otherwise, but had some, was recruited by Texas and some other great schools, University of Arizona and Oklahoma State, and had signed at Arizona State. And but when I was a first round pick, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player, and so there was the opportunity. And I was able to go back and spend some time in school and get somewhat of an education and certainly a life education as the years have gone by.
At that point in time, the Royals have been a good organization at different times during my lifetime. But at that time, they were coming off some great seasons, running into my Yankees, unfortunately, in the postseason. But it was a great organization to be joining, I'm sure. And what was it like in the minor leagues and getting through? Did you spend more time in the minors than you thought you would, coming off a first round selection and such?
I don't, not necessarily. I spent 4.5 years there before my first call up. I really struggled offensively, Keith. Really for my entire career, in those days we just didn't really understand hitting, and so it's kind of like a lot of guesswork, And I wouldn't say I spent more time there, but it was, the minor leagues are very interesting in those days. I think my first year, my meal money in the Florida State League was $6.50 a day.
Oh,
and luckily I had a signing bonus that helped. But the minor leagues are a lot of fun. It's a lot of bus rides, a lot of laughs, a lot of good times, a lot of nice friendships being built in those days where everybody's in the same boat and we all have the same goal, and no one's making a lot of money, and we're having a lot of fun playing ball. So it was a good time, but it was challenging as well. I mean, I look back and I wonder, geez, how did I make it through?
Were there guys as you were kicking around the minor leagues that you thought, man, this guy's can't miss, and we wouldn't know him today necessarily, or didn't make it?
Yeah. There, back in those days, and even up until probably 15 years ago, I think minor league baseball, and especially at the A level, was littered with great players. They still are littered with great players that, for one reason or another, there's just stuff in the way to allow their full ability to come out. And so there were a ton of those guys. And even today, in fact, a client of mine was saying the other day, saying, minor leagues are littered with guys who don't understand the mental game in the batter's box, And he asked me if I've ever thought about working for a club. So there, it's there's the human physiology is very, very complex, and athletes are getting better and better now, bigger, faster, stronger, and really healthier, mentally, physically healthier. And so the competition has never been greater than it is now. And for the most part, you got to be hitting on all cylinders to really play at a consistent level, at a high level.
Do you feel like, just to divert a little bit, I mean, do you feel like the game today is better than it was then? Because I like it the way it was then, to be honest with you. But I'm a bit of a fuddy-duddy in that regard, I guess. What do you think about the game today compared to when you played, as far as, just the approach to the game and such and the way we play it?
Well, I think it's gotten a little bit vanilla, but I understand why. Back years ago when we played, and even before, it was less vanilla. There were a lot more characters in the game. There was a lot of different looking players and less cookie cutter. But the way that the human works and our physiology works, that you can't get away with being a nut. There were a lot of crazy guys in the game back then, and we had so much fun, a lot of laughs, and but to play the game at a very high level now, again, you've got to be clicking on all cylinders. You have to be a pretty solid human to be consistently successful hitting a baseball, throwing a baseball for strikes. There's just, a lot of refinement that has to take place in our system, in our brain, in our body, and the entire nervous system to allow our full ability to be present on a regular basis. There's not a lot of room for a crazy lifestyle, basically.
Yeah.
Does that explain it?
Yeah, it kind of does. It's more regimen today, I guess, in a lot of ways too, right? So they're not allowed to. You don't see the personalities.
You don't see the personalities, and I miss that myself, but I completely understand why. And yeah, I hear you. But it's still a great game. There have been a lot of changes that have taken place. I think there are probably more changes coming too.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if they move back the mound at some point. Although that may not be. That's not the answer to the injury epidemic with pitchers, but it would create more hitting. There are a lot of teams that are just not swinging the bat well, and it's because pitchers are throwing so hard these days. There's so much movement, and I think to create a little more offense, they're going to have to do something.
Well, a lot of, and again, I'm straying a little bit from where I wanted to go, but I would have got here eventually anyway. Don't you think a lot of that, though, is also the approach that the hitters take? I mean, we talk about the 3 true outcomes all the time. It's home run, walk, or strikeout. Guys, and we eliminate the shift instead of teaching guys to hit the ball where it isn't, or it might be too simplistic. And what you said, the pitchers are just too good.
Yeah, I think it really is. Hitters really know how to hit more so. There's a lot of, if you get on social media, there are a lot of people talking about, and criticizing launch angle and all those things, and hitters, Well, the thing to understand about launch angle is a byproduct of getting your body and your hands in a proper position to control the bat head and to be able to wait as long as possible with releasing all that energy onto the baseball. So launch angle is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Certainly a hit and run and punching the ball through the right side can be very beneficial at times. And I'm sure with all the analytics, they all the knowledge out there analytically, that they feel that guys are much better off, just taking a full swing on a regular basis and trying to hit a double, triple home run. I don't know all the numbers, but my guess is that's what they're recommending hitters to do. But again, launch angle is a good thing. It's not going anywhere because it is mechanically the absolute best way to control the bat head for as long as possible, which is what we need to do as hitters. I was going to add, and so that's why we're seeing more home runs. Okay, strike it, and we're going to see more walks because we're better able to control the bat head. We're in a better position to decide not to swing if the ball's out of the zone. And as far as strikeouts go, well, pitchers are throwing harder than ever. Spin rates are high, greater movement. Well, that's the reason for strikeouts.
And Dustin talks about baseball being the toughest sport of all to play, which I agree. It's a game about failure. You need to fail to be successful, right? The best players fail 70% of the time. So I guess we have to get there. With the changes, though, buddy, here's the thing. And again, you talk about hit and run, hitting the ball where the space has been vacated and whatnot. Which again, small ball was a lot bigger in the 70s, let's say, in 80s, and it is today. Could a guy like Buddy Biancalana even get on a roster today? Or your game has just been different, and you would have.
Yeah, not the way that I swung the bat. Absolutely not. And nobody who swings the bat like I did could play on a major league team today.
Yeah,
but I didn't understand how to swing the bat.
Yeah.
If I could swing the bat like I do now and was 25, yeah, I'd be playing in the major leagues. But Yeah, no, and hitters know how to swing now. We've understood the biomechanics of hitting based on physics, the proper angles. With what we do at zone motion, we understand the brain, and that's that's where an athlete can access their full ability.
Interesting. I mean, you did know how to hit for at least a short window of time when you became a overnight sensation in 1985, basically when Dick Hauser put you in the lineup near the end of the season every day, pretty much. And I think you started every game in the playoffs and World Series that year, and you became a household name. You were on David Letterman, but I think you're on Letterman actually for that, if I'm not mistaken, as far as the timeline. But what was that time like, and how exciting was that for you to just get on the stage like that?
Yeah, an amazing time in my life, Keith. As a kid, I always knew I wanted to play Major League Baseball, but I could never fathom playing in the World Series. It was just like too big an event. And even when I got to the big leagues, I wasn't in the thriving mode in the big leagues. I was in the survival mode. So I was just trying to make it through the season and accumulate service time, make some money, and hope, help our team win. And all of a sudden, I found myself in the World Series in 1985, and it was like, whoa, okay, this wasn't part of the plan growing up. But there I was, and I was able to really play the best baseball of my life. I had a zone experience in which everything just really slowed down in my mind, and I wasn't thinking. Everything was just very fluid and effortless. And choose my words carefully when I tell you that every single ball at shortstop hit me right in my sweet spot of my glove, and every throw came out of my hand with just perfect speed and trajectory, and I hit 73 points higher than my career average, and almost won the MVP. Saberhagen rightfully got it. We ended up beating the Cardinals in 7 games. And so it was just an amazing experience for me, bringing the first World Series championship to Kansas City. What a thrill. And you never know where life's going to take you. And I was just very blessed to be on a great club. We had, really great starting pitching, played great defense. We had enough hitting to get the job done. So it was a very exciting time in my life.
As you look back, I mean, you played with some great players. There were some great players on that team, obviously, in George Brett, Saberhagen, as you mentioned, Hal McRae. Is there someone in that team that maybe outside of the big stars or yourself that was an integral cog of this team that drove them as far as they went?
Oh, there were a lot of people that year that really played a part. In fact, there was the Kansas City Star near the end of the season, maybe even the playoffs. They did a story called "The Spare Parts," and they had about 7 or 8 of us bench players sitting in a junkyard, an automobile junkyard. It's titled "The Spare Parts," and how all these guys that who were on the bench just played a part. Greg Pryor and George Orta. Steve Farr was in the bullpen. I'm trying to think of all the other guys. Anyway, so everybody on that team just had a part at one time or another in helping this club get to the series. And we just we're kind of the team of destiny. There were a lot of amazing comebacks late in the year. 9th inning comebacks. We'd be down by a couple of runs and come back and win the game. And there'd be some balls that would get wind blown from foul to fair that would fall. It's like you could feel like there was something taking place, kind of outside of our control, and that allowed everything to come together. And certainly we had a great leader in Dick Hauser. He was just really a good leader, and Dick was always very even keel. And we it was a great team, great guys on the team, and we had really great starting pitching and great coach, Dan Quisbury. Anytime you have great starting pitching, you got a chance to win a short series, and we were able to get it done.
I was going to ask you about Dick Hauser in the Yankee organization for a long time. And when I was younger, I met him a couple of times at different functions as a very young man. And he struck me as one of the nicest people that I've met as far as, celebrity or ball player wise. He just seemed like a good man, Dick Hauser. And I mean, the worst thing George Steinbrenner ever did was firing Dick Hauser after winning
100 games, right?
Right, just because we get swept by your Royals. I know you weren't. I wasn't there. You weren't there then. I'm trying to get the years straight in my head. But Hauser, was he everything that kind of I'm talking about? Was he a good person as he was a manager?
Yeah, no, Dick was a great guy, and I wouldn't say he got real close to all the players, but he again very even keel. After a series of losses, he was okay. He would just say flush, just flush it and move on, and he managed. I think in the World Series, it was the first year he had managed, if I'm not mistaken, without the DH. And which isn't easy to do if you're not accustomed to doing it. And he had some tough decisions to make as to when to pinch hit for the pitcher, right, and when to take him out if he's coming up, and he really did it flawlessly. So yeah, he was good and well liked by our guys.
And that team wins the World Series, and the next year, I believe it was the very next season where Dick took ill. I've got to imagine it had a devastating effect on the team and affected the performance that year.
Yeah, it was really a blow when he came down with the brain tumor, very, very sad. But you just, we felt it. I can tell you that we felt it and had a lot of compassion for Dick and Nancy, his wife. And we had to move on, and Mike Ferraro filled in and did an okay job. We didn't make it back to the playoffs, however.
Right. Yeah. On a more upbeat note, I guess Chris Fgrave's with us. He's in Toronto. He talks about Steve Balboni, who he seems to have had some interaction with, and he calls him an eating machine and a tremendous athlete. Do you have any stories about Steve?
Everyone loves Steve. Everyone loves Steve, and I love Steve. Throwing to Steve at first base, he's such a huge target over there, and Steve was known for being a big home run hitter. Coming up with the Yankees, and we made the trade for Mike Armstrong, a relief pitcher, to the Yankees to get Steve. And Steve was a really great first baseman. He was again known for his bat, but he really played first base really, really well, and could sing New York, New York. He would. I remember going to Avron Fogelman's home in Memphis, Tennessee, at the end of spring training. We'd play the Cardinals in Memphis every year, and then Avron Fogelman, a co-owner with Ewing Kauffman, would have a party at his home, and Steve would get up there and sing New York, New York, and Do It My Way, and by Frank Sinatra. So he was Steve was great.
It's funny, ex-Yankee. I can't remember who he got traded for now. I feel like it was
Mike Armstrong.
Yeah.
Really
I always wonder if Steve Balboni was better off in Kansas City than in New York. His career might have been not the same in New York. Different kind of ballpark and whatnot, in different atmosphere. Do you think Steve would have made it there? Do you think there's something to that? Because I talk about it a lot, I guess, that playing in New York is different than playing in Kansas City or playing in, wherever. And certain players don't have the makeup to do it. And I'm not saying Steve didn't, but in general, do you think there's anything to that? And I guess it plays into your zone motion a little bit, right?
Yeah, I always say that there was no place like New York. I felt there was the big leagues, and then there was New York, especially in old Yankee Stadium. And I think Steve coming to the Royals, I'm not saying he wouldn't have been successful in New York. I think the one thing he had for him in Kansas City was he had a manager in Dick Hauser who was just extremely patient with Steve. He just put him in the lineup every night, no matter how he was doing. He struck out a lot. Yeah. And but Dick would just stick with him, and Steve ended up for a long time. He was the leading home run hitter for the Royals with 36 in one season until I think Mike Moustakas broke it several years ago. But it was Dick's patience that really allowed Steve to blossom, as a player. And I'm not so sure that had he been in New York, that the managers at the time there, and I say managers, I'm sure I can't remember all the Billy and
we don't have to go through a while.
I'm not sure they would have had or could have had the same level of patience that Dick provided Steve.
Steve would have made a lot of money today for sure, right? Because we don't worry about strikeouts as much as we just talked about. So
he would have
made a lot more money today. Guys, some of your comments I'm going to hold to the end just because I think they'll fit better but I will put this in here before we move on too far away from your minor league experiences we just talked about. Who was the biggest character? We talked about personalities a little while ago. Who was kind of the biggest character as you were progressing through the organization?
Oh man, so many. Probably a lot of stories I can't share on social media here or live stream. But we had a guy named Eric Hendricks who played with in the minor leagues. Was just a real fun guy. Would make you laugh. Craig Pippen's a good friend of mine. Was just a really fun guy to be around. Steve Rainey was a guy in the minor leagues. These are all names that you've never heard of. That maybe you've heard of Craig. Craig's been a very successful pitching coach at Pitcher's Edge in Virginia, Vienna, Virginia. But a lot of fun bus rides, a lot of singing. Ron Johnson, Ron played the big leagues for a short time, was a minor league manager and major league coach for a long time. A lot of characters. And then again, this now, as we were talking about earlier, we just don't see those characters anymore because you got to be really solid. You got to be a really, really solid human, well put together, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, to play at a high level now.
Yeah. I mean, some of those guys, obviously some guys would transform any year. George Brett would be able to play in any year, I got to believe. And the intensity that he showed, you were up in 83, but I don't know if you were there for the Pine Tar game, which is obviously my most famous memory of George Brett as a Yankee fan. But that kind of just epitomized his intensity to me, is that moment. But he was a great player for a long, long time, obviously Hall of Famer, and he came up. He's another guy who transformed his game, though, because he wasn't really much of a power hitter in the minor leagues. And you might know a little more about this than I do. Yeah, I know he came before you a little bit in the organization, but I mean, he transformed himself in the major leagues, where Charlie Lau, I think, is his hitting coach, to become a much different hitter during the bulk of his career than early.
Yeah, he did. I know he really credits Charlie Lau with transforming him as a hitter. Really helped him to hit the ball the other way. George, had a knack for responding well in big situations like Reggie Jackson, and he turned himself into a really good third baseman. I know when he came up, and I wasn't there when he came up, but when he came up, he had some problems at third base, but he really worked at it and really became a really, really good third baseman. It was fun playing on the left side of the infield with him and, watching him do his thing. I'll never forget. And I think it was against Toronto. I'm trying to think, maybe game 5 against Toronto, where he hit 2 home runs and had a double, I believe. And it was just amazing to see him respond to, the fans wanting him. He hit 1 home run and he came up a second time. I'll never forget the vision I had from the bench where all the fans, started to stand up. As before the first pitch was thrown to him, they just wanted another home run, and he hit that pitch, out to left center field. And I was like, whoa, he just, answered the call. When someone can answer the call of in a situation, it's really a very, very powerful thing to witness. And so I'll never forget that about George.
I mean, he was in the zone a lot. I mean, you think he knew, what you searched for all these years after playing, because you were in the zone there, as we talked about in the 85 World Series and the time leading up to it. I mean, George was in it more than he was out of it. I mean, was he already, do people do this and not even know it?
Yes, some do. George was in it and out of it. We worked together. I worked with his golf game several years ago, and he's on the cover of my book and with a quote. And but George was prone to slumps. He could go into a slump, but when he got hot, he could really get on. He was on fire, and so he was very gifted. Yes, a lot of people can enter the zone by chance. I entered the zone by chance, in the World Series, but I had no idea. And even great players, typically they have no idea what's taking place in the brain and body, the brain-body coherence that's at play when they're playing great. And a great example of that, is Alex Rodriguez and Barry Bonds and Prince Fielder, 3 really great players who, in general, weren't as great in the postseason as they were during the regular season. And my explanation is they really didn't understand what made them so great. And then when the pressures turned up, these processes of brain and body tend to break down if they don't understand, don't have systematic ways to train them and maintain them. So the zone is a really interesting space, and the brain-body connection is a two-way street, and certainly mechanics are very important. Mechanics based on physics are essential to be in the zone. And when the brain is in the right state, it's a beautiful place to be in life,
Yeah.
Whether you're a baseball player, a golfer, and whatever sport that you're playing.
I can tell you, George went into slumps, but when he saw that interlocking NY and the hats and that other dugout, that guy just killed the Yankees. I'm telling you, I don't think he's ever in a slump against the Yankees.
Yeah, he had some big hits. Yeah, you bet.
Oh, man.
And the home run off Gossage, of course. That was big.
Geez, that sent Dick Hauser straight to Kansas City, that home run.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
so you get through. Your career starts to wind down with the Royals. You get traded to the Astros in '87. What were the feelings like leaving the only organization you knew and moving on to a new one?
Yeah, I was really struggling when I got traded. I after the World Series experience, I just wasn't able to access my full ability. I had no idea what happened in my brain and body that allowed me to play so well in the World Series, and the subsequent pressure of trying to live up to that, without understanding it, combined with, I had a lot of childhood concussions that I really never realized. And it was just very hard for me to play at a high level on a consistent basis. And then you combine that with not understanding the processes of brain and body, it became very difficult. And so I was really struggling, was traded to Houston, continued to struggle, and went back to the minor leagues the following year in Omaha and played pretty well, but had back injury and was never able to get back, although I spent the entire year in '89 on the disabled list. But I just didn't understand the whole process, didn't understand the brain, didn't understand the body. But it's been a blessing. I was able to take my challenges and learn a ton about, how this system works. And I've now worked with athletes in 13 professional sports, and I think it's over 20 amateur sports on the zone experience. And so I've been blessed.
I'll ask this question. I want to go back to the zone for a bit too. Were you mentally prepared for your career to end at that point?
No, absolutely not. No, I wasn't. I wasn't. I responded to it in a pretty positive way. I mean, I always felt that I would be successful doing whatever it was I put my attention on. And so, but no, I didn't understand how to process, emotions, any negative emotions during those days. So it got very confusing. And my nervous system just wasn't in a state to be as clear and able to function in all areas of life as I'm able to do now. I just wasn't prepared at all, but worked hard at it. I can tell you that. And things have worked out just fine.
So at what point, buddy, do you have in your head that I got into this zone and I don't know how I got there. I don't know why I fell out of it. When did you consciously realize there's something there and I need to pursue it?
Well, through some very, very dark days, I would reflect back on my World Series experience. And that World Series experience, what it did for me, it gave me a real reference point to knowing what's inside of me. The fact that I could play that well on such a big stage when I had concussions and all kinds of stuff going on in my body, neck injuries, back injuries, to know that I could respond in a moment like that really gave me a great reference point that kind of kept my, we'll call it pilot light, flickering to grow and heal over many years, healing my brain, healing my body, and to put a lot of pieces together to help athletes, play their best. I'm not a substitute for anything that's being taught, but I really put all the pieces together that can kind of help finish off an athlete. So again, lemons into lemonade somehow, Yeah,
I mean, the whole thing, and again, playing sports and whatnot, we use terms like muscle memory and things like that, but it's not what we're talking about, right? It's getting your mind and body like in
Yeah. It's how information needs to flow through the brain, in a way that allows all the muscles to fire in a more harmonious, synchronistic, sequential manner, allowing an athlete to access their best motion, which is stored in the middle of the brain. So that's how it all works. It's not a substitute for physical talent. I mean, obviously, talent is important, but we can really speed up that development process. We can do it in a safe manner where there's a much less chance of soft tissue injuries. We've had great success at keeping pitchers free of soft tissue injuries. The brain is the operating system of the muscles. And if you don't understand how it functions and train it accordingly, your chance of soft tissue injuries increase dramatically, which is what's happened in our industry as the industry has understood better pitching mechanics and gone to teach them, which is really great. But without understanding the brain process, injuries have actually increased versus decreased. And certainly that's not the complete reason, because players are stronger than ever. And you combine that strength and the arm speed, which is certainly a contributing factor to blowing out UCLs. But again, the brain is the operating system to the muscles. We want everything in the body to work, as best as possible, right?
Yeah, so you've worked with a lot of individual players and some maybe college programs, if I remember right, and you've got endorsements and testimonies from doctors and players and trainers. And I mean, do you see that this is a way that Major League Baseball, all levels, because we got one question here: does it work on every level? Obviously, if it works on one level, it ought to work on everything and other factors of other factions of life as well, right? Not just sports. This can help you in your everyday life and your professional life, no matter what it is.
Yeah, 100%. It's there's no philosophy or theory here. We've been able to really quantify certain things in the brain and body, and can help remove the blocks that all us humans, right? We all get some blocks. We don't know, and until we start exploring. And one of my greatest challenges, Keith, over the years has been to get people to understand what it is I do, because all of us can only see what we can see, and we can only address what we're ready to address. But a lot of people in sports, are starting to understand there's something missing in sports development, and just how consistent we can be, and how can we speed up development. I mean, it's amazing what's happening in the sports world. The last 7 years, these athletes are, just getting bigger, faster, stronger, better than ever. And it's amazing to watch guys perform these days. But we want to put all those pieces together so that, you're really able to access your full ability on a regular basis. You're able to feel good. You're able to function, very well in relationships and in the classroom as well, which, we're pleased to say that all that starts to happen with this type of training.
Yeah. You touched on this a little bit, but with the plethora of pitching injuries, there's injuries in the major leagues, it feels like more than ever anyway, but pitching specifically, I don't know if frustrates the right word, but I mean, do you see this happening and say, man, if they would just embrace what I'm preaching here, we could avoid a lot of this. Is it frustrating, or what? I don't know if it's the right word for you as you see this happening.
I have moments of frustration, but I move through it really, really quickly, because I realize that frustration doesn't serve me at all. But I have conversations with a lot of people who, whatever, a lot of politics in life, right? And a lot of people want to protect their turf, and so I help the people that want to be helped, and I do my best to educate those who want to listen. I've done 5 studies, been very, very successful studies / research projects that show that the training supports shoulders and elbows, core of the body. Guys feel less fatigue, less arm discomfort. A lot of good things from the research. And if Major League Baseball is not interested, they're not interested. So that's fine. There are plenty of amateur players, and I got plenty of professional players, individuals that I work with. So.
You would think that there's going to be one forward-thinking guy eventually, with all the great young minds in front offices today. I guess maybe I should use quotation marks with that. But, you would think one of them would say, there's got to be a way to address this. And it's staring them right in the face. So I got to believe somebody's going to be calling Buddy Biancalana at some point saying,
Yeah, I mean, I have conversations with them, and again, plenty of politics in life, right? And that's fine.
Unfortunately, from a personal standpoint, if you know what you know now, would your career have taken a different path?
100%, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's when you understand physics-based mechanics, and you can understand how the brain functions, you're going to do well in any sport. And so I'm still trying to master golf, which is the absolute greatest game. One of your viewers there said that baseball is the toughest game of all, and I would have to disagree with them. I mean, it's a tough game. Don't get me wrong, but golf is really really quite a game. There's just very little margin for error. So
yeah,
no better game than golf to master yourself in life. So I really love working in the golf world. I do a lot of work in golf, but primarily, more so baseball and other sports.
Golf is the one sport that I found that it gets more frustrating the better you get, which is not really the life in baseball, right? It's more rewarding the better you get. Golf, you just get more frustrated because you think you should do better.
Yeah, but when you hit those, the few really great shots, and it really keeps you coming back and think you can do it all the time, and the really great ones too. Scotty Scheffler's doing it well.
Oh my God, that guy! You talk about being in the zone. Yeah. Gosh, he's there, and I've probably been there, but only for 6 or 7 holes at a time, and then I just remember who I am. I guess I don't know, but
yeah, that's tricky.
I need the zone motion myself. Apparently, if I was playing for real money or something.
Right.
How about I'm gonna. This might be a tangent could this program help umpires? I have to ask this question just because of where we are with umpiring today, and I have this theory. Well, let me just ask you the question first, and I got to bring something else up about umpiring. Could it help umpires even?
Yeah, In fact, several years ago, I was contacted by Major League Baseball umpires to spend some time talking to them, and so we chatted a bit. And yeah, I mean, the key thing, anytime we can be really right in the moment, full energy, full attention, right in the moment, we're going to function better with whatever we're doing. And so, I think umpires really today are better than ever. And I can't be too critical of them. But yes, when you get the brain functioning the way it's designed to function, you're going to do better whatever you do. Right? Yeah. So we see, students in the classroom. I can honestly tell you, I've never worked with a student athlete one-on-one who hasn't done better in the classroom. Things carry right over.
Yeah, I think umpiring, and again, one place I don't want to see baseball go, and this is where I was trying to get to at some point when I talk to you, because I talk about this a lot. With umpires, I like the human factor. I don't like being taken out of sports. There's a lot of analytics and whatnot already. I don't want to see more human element come out of sports. I want to get calls right, yes, egregious calls, but I point back to the 85 World Series a lot. Human error played a big role in you guys winning with Don Deckinger, right, in Game 6. To me, that World Series is more memorable than it would have been without that mistake on his part. And it's just part of life, making mistakes, and I'm okay with it. I wonder what your thoughts are on that and the Denkinger call and all that.
I call it the umpire's call that changed my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying we wouldn't have won had he not made the call, but certainly our chances would have been diminished. I'm kind of mixed. I love the human element as well. We're human. We make mistakes. It's part of life. We grow, we learn. But in sports where it's such a massive business, I love the replay. Do I want an automated strike zone or, I don't know about that. I think, being able to do maybe a few replays on balls and strikes, maybe you get 3 replays during the game.
Yeah.
To really look at it. Either the catcher, the pitcher, or the hitter can choose 3. And you gotta, I think, if you're a manager or, a club, you've got to let the players know, okay, these are situations where we are willing to question a strike but we don't want to question the first pitch of the game, right? We want to do it when the bases are loaded. It's 3-2. Okay, this is meaningful. Let's question this one. So I think I'd like to see that. So because they're big situations where, man, you could just, I mean, in the World Series, my compassion to the Cardinals and Cardinal fans. I mean, the call went our way. Thank you very much, Don Denkinger. But, I have plenty of compassion for their team and their fans and, their management. And so those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and I've always, Danny Fuller and I have had this conversation on my shows often because this topic comes up. And again, human element. Without Don Denkinger in '85, I don't know that I remember that World Series as much as I do today. It just kind of meshes in with some other ones.
Well, thanks a lot. I'm getting off from that.
Well, yeah, again, no, Buddy Biancalana will still be Buddy Biancalana, but it's just I don't know. Without, again, if you go back in time, then that changes. Maybe that changes that whole series. And you're right. St. Louis fans would be happy and Royals fans would be upset today.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It changes. A lot would change in history if you went back in time and added replay to sports. And I don't know if it'd be for the better or not. I'm kind of torn on the whole thing.
Right.
Let me get to a couple of comments or questions that came up that I did not bring up right away. Let's see. Well, Danny Fuller had talked about we had talked about hitting before. He thinks hitters were better.
Danny, Danny, I'm going to disagree with you 1,000% here. Hitters are much better today. They understand the physics, their mental capability, emotional capability is better than ever. Many players in the 80s would have no success in today's game. Sorry to share that with you, Danny.
Did you say Danny?
No.
I thought I heard you say that. Okay.
No.
He's out there in LA. He did have another question. If I can find that one quick while we're talking about Danny here. He wants to know, is your living conditions better compared to Greenberry? I don't know Greenbrae, California.
Greenbrae is where I grew up. So Greenbrae in Marin County, Northern California is a wonderful place in Marin County to grow up. And I'm in Kansas City now, but spent a lot of time in California as well. So I'm blessed to be able to be in two really great places with a lot of great people.
Danny's actually got a bunch of questions here. I go by. This is more of a comment. His father-in-law moved from Kansas City to California out of the Air Force, and he was the biggest Kansas City fan of all time, apparently. So Danny's good.
Appreciate that.
This is kind of an interesting question because I have this comment about the Astros a lot. I call the Astros. He likes to call them the Asterix. He's a Dodger fan, so you can understand his frustration with the Astros. I think it's the most overrated scandal ever myself. Everybody steals signs. Everybody does something. So anyway, his question is about the better run organization. We know the Royals at that time were really a well-run organization from the Kaufmans on down through Schulholtz and others that you mentioned. You think they were better run than, because the Astros are kind of the model for the last, 8-10 years or so. What are your thoughts about those two organizations?
Well, back in the day, I didn't spend a lot of time with the Astros, but the Royals were very well run. There's such a great foundation with ownership, Ewing Kauffman, and then general manager Joe Burke, John Schulholtz. They really built a really sustainable model. I felt they really drafted well. They developed pitching really, really well. They built their team around the stadium with solid defense and speed. And the Astros, I don't know enough about the Astros in those days, but certainly the Astros really.
I think he means more today.
Today. So the Astros, obviously, when Jeff Luhnow came in there from St. Louis to be the GM, really figured some things out analytically and drafted really well, and they developed a lot of players out of Latin America that have really been great players. So they really have done great. A couple of those people, Mike Elias and Sig, whatever Sig's last name is, who went on to Baltimore, have done some really good things in Baltimore. They're doing the same thing in Baltimore and having a lot of success doing it. And the Royals, are, I think, on a great trajectory. JJ Picola, the new GM, and Matt Quatrero. Matt's a good friend of mine. Know that both those guys well. I think they're going to do well. Matt's a brilliant guy, JJ's doing a great job. Really sharp guy as well. Good people. I think, I'm just hoping the Royals can really get back over the hump. And they're playing well. They've really made some great acquisitions, and some of the young players are playing well. But we'll see. What the Astros are really struggling. We'll see what happens if they can bounce back.
Yeah, look, that's interesting what's happening there. And I think they've been their best run organization in the last decade for sure. And the Orioles now are, as you said, following that model. Today, they're probably the people to follow. He's talking about sitting in Fenway Park, enjoying sitting in Fenway Park. Did you have a favorite park when you were playing to play in? Was it Kauffman Stadium? Was it somewhere else?
No, I wouldn't say it was Kauffman Stadium. At the time, it was Royal Stadium because we had AstroTurf. I really enjoyed playing on grass fields. I loved playing at Old Comiskey Park in Chicago, except the infield was so slow. It was just too slow. It was, it could actually overrun a ball sometimes. Old Tiger Stadium was really a fun place. I used to love to play in loud stadiums and really, with a fun environment. The Detroit fans are crazy. Chicago fans are loud. Those were really fun places to play for me. But always wanted to play on a grass infield, but never had the opportunity here in Kansas City.
Chris is asking about after the World Series was in '85, I believe. So maybe he's talking about '86. After your high, and now you start to struggle, as you mentioned yourself, to stay at that level. You may have already talked a little bit about this. What was it like sharing time with Angel Salazar, and how'd you handle that?
I handled it okay. I actually had my best offensive year that year. My defense was fine, but they brought in. Angel played just incredible defense all year. He didn't hit it all, but was just catching the ball every night at shortstop and rarely made a mistake. So, it wasn't easy, but I handled it well. And I supported Angel and the way he was catching the ball. I can't complain. For Billy Gardner, let's see who it was at the time, Mike and Dick, kind of going with him for a while.
And Kenny again is talking about how long is when you're doing training. I think the second part of this we've already talked about. You could go to a school or team and help them as a whole. We know that, I think, from our discussion. As far as the training you do now, if somebody were to enroll, for lack of a better term, how long is the training?
Yeah, I spend an initial 2 months with them. We can work on FaceTime or in person. It's not a problem. And then after that, we just there can be some maintenance program that we can put them on. Basically what we're doing, we're shifting neural pathways in the brain while they're on the field and off the field, and, working with beliefs and how information moves through the brain that affects the muscles and all. So it depends on the athlete and just kind of where they are at the time and how quickly they progress.
Yeah. We could all use Buddy's workout method, I think, for sure. Dave Guyette wants to know if you keep in touch with any of your former teammates.
I, run into guys down then. I'm in touch with Brett Saberhagen a little bit, and Greg Pryor, and just run into some guys at some functions here in Kansas City, which is nice. We've got a function coming up May 16th where they're honoring the 2014 World Series team, the American League champions, and I'm looking forward to going to that and seeing some of the guys and probably some guys, former Royals who I've never met. So it should be a good experience.
Oh, cool. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I've heard, I don't think we touched on a little bit here today. And I know I saw an interview or read an interview where most of the rule changes that have come the last few years in baseball, you're in favor of, I believe, most of them. What are your thoughts on the rule changes?
Yeah. So first, the pitch clock, I thought would lead to more pitching injuries than it has.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way, but again, if people aren't quite understanding how the brain functions, it's going to increase injuries. But I like the pitch clock. I think it's been good for the game. The first game I saw 2 years ago in spring training, the pitch clock, I found myself really liking it. The game was just moving faster and it kept me more engaged. So I think it's allowing for more engagement from fans. I think players probably love it. I know they like it. As far as the shift, I like the fact, I understand both sides of the shift. I mean,
yeah.
In the NFL, you play whatever kind of defense you want, and basically, in the NBA, you can play off players and, stand here on the court or where we want to stand. But, but I think, I really didn't like the shift. I just think it's good to, be a little more traditional here, keep 4 guys on the dirt, 2 guys on each side of second base. I think it has taken away from some hitting. But such as that, I think the bigger bases at first base, I think is a good rule to give a little more space there for the runner and the first baseman not to collide. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure it's needed at second or third base. But I think the fact that we do have bigger bases has created more base stealing, which has been exciting. I think also the base stealing, increase in those numbers has been a factor. A contributing factor has been the fact that pitchers can only throw over 3 times or step off, right? 3 disengagements.
Yeah, that's one I hate myself.
I think it should be 4. I think they should add. I think it's good because it has added to base stealing. I think that's brought back a little of the old time game, which has been good.
Yeah.
And so I know there've been a lot of other rule changes. The automatic walk I think is fine. That speeds up the game.
Yeah.
What else? What am I missing?
I think you touched on pretty much the pitch clock, the shift, the bases. How about the runner on second base? I hate to start extra innings.
Well, I'm glad they don't have it in the postseason.
Right.
I really don't like it. I understand they're trying to protect the pitchers, but it's not the solution to the pitching injury epidemic.
No.
Let me say it's not the primary solution to the pitching injury epidemic. Extra innings, are fun to watch, but I think players probably love it. Right. It's going to reduce fatigue, less time on the field. But it's kind of, to think, an error, you got a guy at second base and the guy's a ground ball to shortstop and the shortstop, messes it up and the guy ends up scoring, one pitch, 1 error and the game's over. I don't know about that.
I agree. We'll just get a couple more, then we'll let you go. But Danny's last big one. What's your thoughts, if you want to weigh in? Some people don't, about the Hall of Fame and PEDs and the guys who have been left out theoretically at least, because of PEDs.
Yeah. So there's certain issues I just don't pass judgment on. I just like, okay, that's what it is. And certainly those guys who were doing the performance enhancing drugs were great players. I'm sure they wouldn't have been as great without them. It's too big a subject for me to really even form an opinion on.
Yeah.
Is a lot of those guys are really, really great players, and I'm sure not all would have made it. Would have been all their numbers might not have been qualifications for being considered a Hall of Fame. So it's it's a case by case situation, I think.
The problem is it's impossible to know who was doing it. We only know the people that were doing it, and we don't know how really widespread it was. If we actually knew everybody who did and didn't, I think it'd be much easier to me, put them in and just put the story on their plaque. If they deserve the Hall of Fame, put the story on their plaque. Same with P. Rose. And how do you have a Hall of Fame without P. Rose? I mean, I understand what he did was wrong. Put it on his plaque. He was banned for baseball for gambling. But
right.
He's in the Hall of Fame.
And now gambling's promoted.
Yeah, it's another.
It's another subject, right?
We could spend another hour on that. I don't know if you know much. Dennis Leonard obviously was a little before your time. I don't think he carried over into your time with the Royals. He's a really good pitcher with the Royals in the 70s. So he did cross over a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit in his rehab years when he came back. In fact, I played behind him in a game where I think he threw a 1-0 shutout on a Sunday afternoon after he'd come back, and it was really very, very exciting. Leo's a great individual. He and his wife Audrey, just great people. And I agree that had Leo been playing somewhere besides Kansas City, would have been more highly regarded than what he was. Yeah,
he was a great pitcher in the 70s, and again, one of the overlooked guys we don't think about a lot. Thanks for bringing that up, Chris. Any last thoughts, buddy, before we let you go?
No, just it's been fun, Keith. Really nice to visit with you.
I appreciate you coming on today, and I enjoyed the interview, and I'm glad that I wanted to get into the your whole thing with the zone motion and it kind of weave it into the whole conversation. So I hope that went well for you. So we appreciate your time today, and guys, we'll see you next week when my guest on Friday will be Brian Holloway, former New England Patriot lineman, and we'll be back Sunday with the Sunday Stream of Consciousness. So we'll see you guys later. Have a great day.